So I normally wouldn't read what any publicity department or assistant sends me, but this is beautifully written, so I'm just going to go ahead with it. And you'll understand why once I start speaking to my guest. Careers can start with a phone call. Hers did twice. As a go-getting journalist wanting to change the world, she received her first important phone call from Jim Stodel of African Theatres asking her to run the press office. She did just that and quickly saw there were enough audiences in South Africa for more shows to be brought in. And so at the age of 22, the youngest and also the first woman to do so, she started Showtime Management. Her first show was Stars of the American Ballet. The second phone call was from hotel magnate Sol Kerzner. He invited her to go on a helicopter flight with him to see a building site miles from nowhere, nestling in an ancient volcanic crater with a heap of building material that would one day be Sun City. He was mad, she thought, but it was madness that she liked, and she accepted his offer to run the entertainment side of Sun City. He tempted her by dropping in names like Sinatra, and 14 years later, she was dropping names of her own. Freddie Mercury, Liza Minnelli, Elton John, Rod Stewart. Her big lesson from Sol was, if you can dream it, you can do it. After Sun City, she adopted his motto and went on to greater challenges. The Rolling Stones, Pavarotti, the Three Tenors, musicals like Chicago, Rent, Dreamgirls, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and so many more. My guest is Hazel Feldman.
Gosh, thanks.
That's
that's
you see what
a
I mean?
trip down memory lane. My gosh,
but beautifully written.
Yeah.
I mean, and all true. What a start to both your beginnings at kind of working for African theatre, but then also this amazing story with Sol. And it's you went up in a helicopter.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But Cliff, I've been blessed. One looks at things and looks back at life and you say there are pivotal moments, and my pivotal moments have honestly been the telephone. The telephone rings. I wanted to retire 40 times, but the telephone rings. I mean, at my age, I seriously should be sitting with my feet up and 4 margaritas and a couple of 25-year-olds with grapes. But my reality is that I'm still working and loving it.
You still got Sam, and
Sam is retired. He's having a great time. He's actually shot under his age on the golf course recently. So there he is. He's beside himself.
And you're out there
and I'm
grinding.
out there busting my backside. And my son Tony is constantly doing stuff that I have no clue what he's doing because I don't understand stuff like ultra music festivals well, I do kind of understand, I suppose, the entertainment value of something like Monster Jam, but the ultra music festivals are way out of my realm.
But you've been to one, and
I've been to one, and I honestly, Sam and I brought the average age of the audience up by about 100 years. It was very, very scary to actually see everybody actually going nuts for these DJs who twiddle buttons.
Yeah.
I know I am totally going to get mashed
you will.
with that because that's what they do. They twiddle buttons and push the sound higher. And is there a vocal component to that? Is there any vocal talent with that? I'm not 100% certain. But yeah, I've had a wild ride. It's just fantastic, Gareth, to have to look back and just remember some of the crazy times. It's been terrific.
So, I mean, we're going to get a little bit nostalgic. I hope you don't mind that. But some of these names and some of these people you've worked with are incredible, world-famous artists. Some of them have died. I mean, Freddie Mercury's no longer with us. You had to deal with him losing his voice, I remember, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the
deal.
most. Yeah, it was a big deal. And in actual fact, that my relationship with Queen, their manager, Jim Beach, actually started. I was desperate to bring Queen out to Sun City. Sol kept telling me, we're a Las Vegas-style showroom. We do the Sinatras and the Liza Minnellis and the shows. We do not do rock and roll. And I said, we want Queen. And he said, well, if you can get there, we'll talk about it. And I literally spent on and off maybe 7 trips to London, and I used to sit on the steps outside of Jim Beach, Queen's Management, the Queen Management office in Notting Hill, and wait for Jim to come into the office. And I nagged him until he came out, had a look at Sun City, and said, okay, under certain conditions, we prepare to come. And sadly, I mean, it was the most extraordinary tour. We did 11 shows. Well, we booked 11 shows. We sold out 11 shows in about maybe 2 hours. CompuTicket pretty much crashed.
That was in the old days of the phone, right? People had the
phone, and there was CompuTicket and so on. And so Sol crapped on me for bringing in a rock and roll show, and then he crapped on me when we sold out because he said I must have priced it too low. So, I was never going to win with him. But the shows were fantastic. And sadly, we were literally 3 shows. We opened the Friday night, Friday to Saturday, the early show Sunday, and then on the late show on the Sunday. We were sitting actually in the green room backstage.
Was that at the Super Bowl?
At the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And suddenly, I'm with Jim, and suddenly he's just started Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's just the bit of the piano. He'd been about 30, 35 minutes into the show, and it's the opening keyboards of Bo Rap. And suddenly went quiet. And my immediate, speaking of Southern, my immediate concern, oh my God, we've had a power surge or something's gone wrong.
You were ahead of
and
your
I'm
time.
waiting ahead of my time, and I'm waiting for 10 seconds for the Jennies to kick in. 1, 2, 3, nothing. And then I hear murmuring, that murmur that comes up. And then suddenly we get up, we go into the corridor backstage, and Freddie comes running down, and he's crying, and Brian's crying, and everybody's going, what's happened? It went like this, there's no throat. No voice, the finger across his throat. He lost his voice, simply packed up. There was nothing coming out of, no vocal sound at all coming out of his throat. And Jim and I had to go up on stage and tell 8,000 people to please keep their seats, keep their tickets. But we were going to have to cancel the show, and we canceled the next 3 shows. And we actually added some shows on at the end when Freddie got a little better. We flew up an ENT specialist to Sun City to actually take care of him. And sadly, that which we understood later was the first sign. It was massive polyps and that on the throat. So that was the beginning.
I mean, this is part of history. When you watch movies like that one that they made recently about Freddie Mercury, I mean, because you had a real life connection with this man.
Yes, and
you must have found yourself
in tears.
Yeah,
in tears. I have to be honest, in tears. It was a brilliant portrayal. It was so. It was so real. It really was, and that's what he was. He was his own man in so many ways. And he thrived. I think he was very lucky because it was a very interesting time, if you know anything about how those bands got together. But they lucked out, the 4 guys, in getting Jim Beach as a manager because Jim created a democracy with the band. There were always 5, including Jim, there were 5 votes for whatever they did. It was never one person dictating anything.
Right.
So it was the 5 of them, always together. And that sense of togetherness, even though they were such different characters, unbelievably different characters, but that togetherness is what created that he could create the kind of music he created. I mean, when you think Bo Rap was written in 1972.
But also that it lived beyond Freddie, because that normally when a band loses their front man, it falls apart.
Yeah.
You get little tribute things here and there, but they've gone on to have performed at Buckingham Palace, I don't know, 100 times. They've got musicals and books and movies, and the brand is still out there.
The brand
is
out there. They're touring with Adam Lambert.
Yes.
The 3 guys. No, it's the 2 of them.
It's Brian and Roger.
Brian and Roger. It's not John Deacon. And of course, We Will Rock You, which is
Monstrous.
which
This
has been going now for what it's nearly 18 years. It's been going, and Brian didn't mind it. Roger hated the show. He hates musicals. You should actually get together with him. Just come to think about it.
We get along really
Gareth,
well.
I must introduce you to
Look,
to Roger.
don't go and disparage me now.
No,
I
I won't,
want
I
to sit
won't.
here and pay tribute to you for all the incredible things you've done. So you mentioned him twice already, but I do want to just spend a minute talking about Sol.
Yeah.
Because Sol Kerzner, who I also had the good fortune to meet not so long ago and not so long before he died, entirely by chance at a private dinner in London, and I sat with him for a little while and talked to him. But that man and his ability to see an incredible dream materialize gave South Africa its first taste of international entertainment, leisure. I mean, really, we would have been a hokey kind of
Absolutely.
outlying nowhere to go place if it wasn't for his vision.
There's no
and all
question.
over the world, way beyond South Africa, he created Atlantis, and he did these amazing things. You worked with him probably closer than anyone else.
Yeah.
From the entertainment
From the
point.
entertainment perspective, he's had. It's a tribute to him that he had so many people who worked so long for him and with him. I was 14 years with Sol, and running the entertainment, running Sun City, going through the growing pains of Sun City and the build-up of it. I mean, it was insane. It really was. When we flew over in that helicopter, and that's not an urban myth, we flew, it was Sam and myself, we flew in the helicopter with him. I was frightened to death. And we go swooping over this mountain into this valley that is a building site of sand. And he says, and that's going to be the golf course, and that'll be ready in about 8 months. I mean, how's he going to grow a golf course in 8 months? And that hole in the ground is going to be where the theater is. And eventually we're going to build a Super Bowl, but that's going to be in phase 2 or 3, and that's going to be in that space. And the first hotel is here, and I'm thinking, this guy's insane. This guy's certifiable. He's that certifiable that I think I want to be along for the ride.
Wow.
It was absolutely insane.
So you just knew you were dealing with something
there was
special.
something. There was something extraordinary about him, and it's that sense of belief that was amazing. And you needed to deal. You had a thick skin to deal with Sol. You really needed it because he's
Reactive.
very reactive, very loud, marginally profane, which of course I've never been in my life.
No.
No, not at all. But that vision he instilled in us. So it was, if you want to do something and you believe it's going to make a difference, then do it. Don't talk about it. Yeah. Don't tell me how you're going to do it. He didn't care. If you're going to do it. But he didn't need to know the
details.
ABC of it.
No.
You get from A to Z, do it.
And if it worked out,
sure.
you were golden.
Yeah.
But if you screwed up,
he gave you.
He would tear you a new.
There's no question. There was no question, and it was a very, very difficult political time.
Of course,
very difficult.
And this is something
time.
else which I'm sure you've spoken about ad infinitum, but we've never had this conversation. When you're booking all these amazing people to come here, there's the incredible complication of apartheid South Africa, and a lot of them don't want to come because it's going to make them look bad internationally. And a lot of them do come, and then they only realize afterwards that it's caused them a lot of PR problems. But you're just trying to do business in this very mixed up world.
A very mixed up world, and against very, very different and difficult backgrounds, because you not only had the apartheid world, you had apartheid South Africa. You had the so-called Bophuthatswana independence, so-called. You had the strange dichotomy of when you went into BOP and you were at Sun City, you had this complete non-racial, interactive situation where it was there, even if it was if it was a false narrative, but it
artificial,
was,
but it
but-
felt different.
but it felt different,
and it gave South
and
Africans a
and-
glimpse of what the rest of the world looked like if they'd never
and it
traveled.
was so inclusive. It really and truly was inclusive.
On that note, is it worth giving a little credit to Lucas Mangope? Because he gets a very bad rap these days. And of course, he wasn't perfect. And he did a lot of things that were in cahoots with the old government, and people have branded him a traitor and all the rest of it. But really, like, if I think about entertainment in this country, and maybe I'm just going off on a tangent, but Bop TV, Radio Bop, these kinds of things established in the black community in South Africa, particularly the Tswana-speaking community, obviously, it established an entertainment pipeline, which we continue to see results from at a time when nowhere else was it possible for black people with talent to rise.
I honestly believe that he had the luck of having soul being so involved in his particular enclaves, because soul was the one who encouraged, open up, create facilities, bring the people along, open up different elements. They had. I remember when Rosemary Mangope, the daughter-in-law, opened up the Mabata Cultural Center. I mean, she went around and saw cultural centers around the world. It was a model. I wanted to look at it. I wanted to bring it and put it in Joburg. Where was such a cultural center in Joburg, in Soweto, in anywhere? We still don't have one.
No.
We still don't have one. And so I think they managed to do stuff that perhaps, I think the little nudge here and there from Soul made him do. Will I give him a good rap? No, not really. But hey, I benefited from the fruits of what that was. I cannot deny it. It's history, and that's the reality. But it was a tough thing. He actually fired me. I don't know if you know this, but
tell me.
yeah, I had a fascinating time towards the end of the 80s. It was becoming nigh impossible to actually get very, very big name acts. So I got quite involved with certain contacts I'd had from years back with what was then the MDM, the Mass Democratic Movement, and I was also meeting very surreptitiously at that time with some of the people from the ANC. And the idea was,
By the way, that could have got you into big trouble had the wrong people found out.
Because very simply, when he did find out, Mangope, he said I was bringing the sovereignty of the nation into question. And he sent an email to the MD at the time, you need to get rid of her.
Wow.
And I was actually told that if I went to Sun City, they couldn't guarantee my safety for a certain period of time. That went down. And I said, well, so be it, whatever, but it's not going to change what we're doing. And the conversations I was having with people here was, okay, guys, I understand where you're coming from. We're going to cool it for a period of time with the very, very big acts. These are the names we have already booked. I had acts like Black Sabbath and so on that were already booked. And I said, however, now you want a platform for South African talent, because the exiled musicians were starting to come back into South Africa. And they were looking for platforms to actually perform. I said, fine, you've got the Super Bowl. Let's find stuff to do in the Super Bowl. And we did a whole series of jazz concerts called One Night's Journey Through Jazz that involved all the big name exiled musicians that came back. It's like a Duke Ellington band. We had 150 musicians, and it was just amazing. And we did a number of different kinds of concerts and so on. And it became a platform. And as things started to ease towards the end of the 80s into the early 90s, and then obviously when Mandela was released, or we knew that Mandela was going to be released, and we knew that things were going. It obviously eased up after PW after
he went away.
Yeah, and when FW came in, it was it was different. But I mean, it was not an easy time.
But I'm so glad I asked you about that, because to be fired by Lucas Mangope should also be on the
I've got the
CV.
letter
That's
still.
hilarious.
It's lovely. I've
That's
got the
great.
lovely letter.
So
Yeah.
obviously when people sit down with you, and you probably know these stories like the back of your hand because you've had to relate them so many times, but all these famous people. But the hard slog is with the managers, the agents.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
and some of this stuff, because people don't know how it used to work. Now, obviously, everybody's on social media, so you can tweet your favorite star, and they might even reply.
I
Who knows?
hate to tell you this, but in the beginning, do you know what a telefax is?
I know what a fax is.
No, you don't know what a telefax is.
What's a
so
telefax?
a telefax is a machine that's probably about 3 foot high, 3 foot wide, and it had a yellow tape that you used to tap on a keyboard, and this yellow tape would come through
Like a ticker.
like a ticker tape. It was called a telefax.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we used to send across overseas, because the fax hadn't been invented yet.
Wow.
I'm talking about the early 80s. I sat with a telefax machine sending the contracts through. And remember, there's no mobile phones. There's really no computers. There's really no internet of consequence. There's no faxes.
Yeah.
I mean, when faxes came out, it was a miracle. We could get a contract and we could return a contract. I mean, it was fantastic. But yeah, in the early days, it was very, very difficult to deal, and a time
Oh, yeah. Just
that
took
it
forever,
took.
right?
with agents that
And lawyers.
really, and lawyers, agents, lawyers, managers was tough.
So it wasn't just like you'd pick up the phone and go, hey, we'd love to have the Rolling Stones. How much do we have to pay?
No.
And they'd say, cool, we've got a gap here. I mean, that
No.
was unheard of. Everything
work.
was laborious.
It was laborious.
Beyond belief.
And understand something as well with South Africa. We are at the end of the world. We're not near anybody.
No, so they can't just
And
add it
no,
into a tour.
we're not an add-on. We're not an add-on. we're a destinations place. And unlike Australia, and the concerts that they'll do there, Pink will go to Australia and she'll do 36 concerts.
Yeah.
She'll come to South Africa, maybe do 4,
Yeah.
maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's about it. You'll get a Justin Bieber come out here, who Ati was going to bring. He'll do 1 in each centre. What are the centres? 3
Yeah.
or 2. That's it. That's all you can do. You know, you go to Australia, they'll do 45 different concerts.
Yeah, so it's worth their while.
It's
to
worth
go
their
there.
while in a period of time, and to come all the way out here is a very, very tough thing. And,
And
they're
we
not
have
falling
to,
over
we have to
themselves
pay them in
come out.
dollars, but we only charge ticket
And
prices in
we-
rands. So again, it's like this is a tough business.
It
It almost reminds me a little bit of the airlines with the cost of aviation fuel and the fact that these margins are actually terribly thin.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think, oh well, Hazel Feldman, having dealt with all these people, must be unbelievably wealthy. She must be a billionaire.
Let's
She's still working,
go.
ladies
She's
and
still
gentlemen.
working at her age. She's still working. It's getting more difficult. I mean, when we did Frank Sinatra, 1 rand bought $1.20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nowadays $1 you'll need 18 rand 50 to buy $1. Before, it was the other way around.
Tell me about it.
I mean, it's crazy. When I started, funnily enough, it started to go pear-shaped terribly badly in 84, which of course was the Rubicon speech of
Yes.
our dear friend.
PW.
Yeah, and when I started negotiating with Queen, I remember having this conversation with Sol. We started, the rand had already slipped to about 5 rand 20 or so to the dollar, but it was still kind of worthwhile. All of a sudden, by the time we brought them, we were pushing 7-8 rand. That's massive variances when you're talking about millions of dollars. Massive.
And then you have to
variances.
cancel concerts and
And you're
refund
cancelling
people.
concerts and you're refunding, and we have a finite amount that we can charge the public here. You know, you go to a concert. I've been following a couple of things overseas. You can actually be paying upwards of $1,000, $1,500 for a ticket. You want to go to Hamilton, you'll pay $300,
Sure.
and that's the rack rate. And if it's a sold out, then you're paying premium.
Yeah.
So
And if you want a good ticket,
and
you're paying even more.
Yeah, I mean, even Monster Jam, a family show, at the moment they're doing a very big tour of the US. Their average ticket price is $90. Their average ticket price.
Now, we can't ask
No.
people to pay
No.
the equivalent in rands. It's just, it's outrageous,
By
right?
18. I mean,
So-
it's crazy.
So, I mean, this is the business of what you do.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
there's the unglamorous side of things. And people will hear stories about you and the Rolling Stones or Chicago. I mean, there must be some incredible, incredible stories and things that you can't even tell. That, while the people are still around, you can't. But I'm sure that there are some that stick out for you even if you're, and I don't think you are, but even if you were jaded and over it and kind of sick of telling the stories and people are all, they have these Google-eyed, outrageous views of what might or might not have occurred. But some of them must still stick in your mind. Some of them must still be the things that you remember because you dealt with these people face to face.
Yeah. Look, I think probably one of the things that's always worked for me is that I'm really not that starstruck. I get more excited when I stand at the back of an absolutely packed theater or a stadium and I watch the audience and I watch the audience go ballistic. And that's when I get so
That's
excited.
satisfaction.
And that's my serious kick. I mean, to go and meet someone and shake their hand and do all of that's lovely. Some of them are really nice. Some of them are really full of crap. Most of them. And the people around them even more so. So some of them I honestly just avoid and have avoided. But
And you would often delegate that responsibility to other people if you could.
I have as well, because I will do an initial meet because you kind of have to. And then if I actually get that strange vibe, I think I really don't need to be around. I'm not a person who kisses backsides at all. It's not my thing. And, so fine. It's a business. We have a job to do. And I have a fantastic team of people, and they'll do the job. There are some people, who over the years, in a strange way, you find an affinity to. Some of them I've met when subsequently going overseas and met them again and so on. And but a hell of a lot of them not really.
But I think that when you are sitting in the presence of real genius and you can actually hear Elton John playing that piano from walking distance, you could basically spit at him if you wanted to. That's quite special, even for someone like you who's looking at the numbers, looking at the audience, making sure that everything's in place. You've got responsibilities. But there must have been a couple of moments where you looked around and went, this is quite a big deal.
There's genius. Sinatra's genius.
Yeah.
He was genius, even at his age when he came out, and he was actually in quite good voice when he came out, but he was also starting to go. Liza Minnelli, we had her in her heyday, and I mean she was just the most brilliant singer, dancer. What a tragic figure.
All-round entertainer.
Everything. What a tragic figure. Just her mother,
Judy Garland.
Reincarnate, sadly. All the foibles that her mother had, she had. But when she stepped on that stage, she was on another planet, and there are not too many like her. One amazing thing, I mean, Elton, interestingly enough, over the years went to see Elton in different parts of the world and had spent quite a bit of time with him. I even went to his home in LA. I was desperate to get Elton out, and it was difficult. He was thinking about it. He wasn't thinking about it. And I had Rod Stewart coming out. So I said to him, how about this? Rod Stewart's coming out. How about you come out when he's there? He said, you know what? On condition you don't tell him I'm coming.
Oh,
and
brilliant.
you keep it quiet. So Rod opened on the Friday night. Elton arrived on the Saturday morning. He was there for 4 days. He was going to come in just for 4 days from London. He brought 14 cases, but 14 of the biggest cases I've ever seen
This
in
is
my
just
life.
his clothes, right?
Yes, just his clothes and his shoes and his glasses, and I don't know what else. And he arrived in the morning, on the morning flight from the UK. Rod had a matinee that Saturday afternoon, and we walked Elton onto side stage, and Rod was performing, and Elton walked on in the middle of a number.
Oh, my God.
The audience went nuts. Rod just went ballistic. That was just a magic
That's so
moment. And the
special.
two of them actually performed he did about 3 numbers with him, and then, went off.
Wow.
And, that was
Elton
fantastic.
seems to like doing this, though. I saw an incredible YouTube video the other day of him and Billy Joel doing Goodbye Yellow Brick Road
Yeah.
together,
Yeah.
both on the piano.
Yeah, they did a
wow.
concert. I saw them in Dallas.
Oh,
it was
wow.
amazing. I saw them in a stadium, which I'm not
You see,
mad about
when
going
you're
to
not
stadiums.
doing the event, you can enjoy it.
I can absolutely. And they had the pianos face to face, the
Yeah.
2 grand pianos face to face, so they were looking at each other. And it was like dueling pianos with Billy Joel, and it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life.
I could
And
believe
he
it.
is such a performer, Elton. He just,
Oh, man.
if anybody gives, there are some performers who will actually walk through their shows. He gives 110%. And if he can't give 110%, he actually would rather not do the show.
So I've heard lots and lots of stories about Pavarotti.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of them are urban legend.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them sound like they could be true. Like he was very difficult and extremely kind of self-aware and wanted things done just a certain way and would only come on to do X, Y, and Z and then get off again. You can even see it now if you watch old videos of his performances, that he's kind of takes it terribly seriously, no sense of humor about the whole thing. And whether he was putting on a character or not, he never breaks it.
I think because that voice was just so as strong and as it was and majestic, it was delicate. So I think, as you say, he took himself extremely seriously, and he felt that he needed to protect the voice
Is
at
it
all
true
time.
he needed an extremely big lavatory?
Towards the end, the last time we brought him out, he needed an extremely big everything. He was wasn't in good shape. He was really
But not
not.
but I get the
funny
feeling.
enough, yeah, the first time when we brought him out in '96, he came out the beginning of '96, and he did the first time when we did the outdoor stadiums in Stellenbosch, because I couldn't get a stadium in Cape Town. So we went into the rugby stadium at Stellenbosch University. And we did it. It was just magical with these mountains behind us on the rugby field.
Wow.
And then we went to Loftus, and we did the Loftus show. And he was in actually pretty good voice. He was in actually pretty good shape for him. An enormous man, but in pretty good shape. And I think because that was the beginning of the relationship with a girlfriend, who then became the wife. And she was there as his double quotes assistant. So he was in actual good shape. She tended to take care of him more than
Faff
he needed
around.
us to faff around her, to faff around him. So,
she was making herself useful.
Yeah,
and
she
important.
did make herself pretty useful, which was fine.
But got in your way.
No, she actually never did.
Oh, okay.
She never did. I don't care. So long as if you've got to do something at 3:00, damn well be there by 5 to 3. That's the thing. I don't care about the rest of the stuff. Just don't tell me at 10 to 3 I'm not doing it.
Was there, and there must have been a few, but is there one that you remember where someone just was buggering around and you had an audience that were getting a little bit more angry than usual? Or where you were getting more angry than usual?
I got very angry with a lot of people, but I'm trying to think
Ever
where
have
they
words?
left down. Oh, yes. I mean, I had out there with Barry Manilow.
Oh, yeah?
Barry Manilow and I did not see eye to eye.
What, is he a bit prima donna-ish?
Beyond prima donna.
Really?
And in fact, he decided backstage of the Super Bowl, nobody could walk through or look at him eye contact before he went on stage. Sol used to bring his entourage through
hello?
the backstage through to his seats, which were always obviously in the front row of the Super Bowl. And he used to come in, if the show was at 8 o'clock, Sol used to rock up at about 5 to 8, which was more or less the time that Barry Manilow decided to come out of the dressing room and come through. So not our security, but Manilow had his own goons who decided that this little man puffing his cigarette in those days and his entourage could not come through the backstage.
Oh boy, clash of egos.
Oh boy, clash of the Titans, even though he was 5'10", maybe 5'8", so.
He must have been incandescent.
He went apeshit. He really did. Started screaming for me. Everybody, I was in the auditorium, and I got everybody, wait. I go, right, what's wrong? Is he right? Is that, what's happening? The artist's not going to go on. They said, yeah, he's threatening not to go on. Why? Because Solo's wants to walk through the backstage. I said, what? You got to be kidding me.
Oh my God.
You know,
how do you manage that, Hazel?
Are you serious?
See, this is where I mean, you've earned your reputation, and I know you're not one to sit and listen to long soliloquies about your incredible successes. But for any human being to take on in that moment a situation between Sol Kerzner and Barry Manilow and actually emerge with a show. That's guerrilla size behavior.
That was a fun one because Sol's attitude is I'm paying this
son of a bitch
guy, and if he's going to and tell him to back up and go home. No, Sol, just do me if I got a full house. Anyway, I got Manilow back in his dressing room. Got Sol to come through. Sol was angry, with that
wasn't going to
angry
enjoy
face.
The show no matter
he was
what.
never going to enjoy the show, so he sat with
you
this.
Came along just like a song, and Sol sitting there going, "I want nothing to do."
No,
with it.
I said, how can I murder you? Is there some way I can cut your legs off?
Wow.
And Manilow, he was just, just had such a, and I never dreamed it would be somebody like him who had such an ego that one could not actually deal with him during that period. Now, I don't know if he's changed subsequently or there was something to do with that.
He's been through a lot, and I think he would probably be embarrassed if he ever heard this.
Yeah, well, I mean, he has to remember it because there were 6,000 people who were privy to it because it was screaming all the way through.
Needless to say, you didn't book him after that again.
No, I didn't bring him back. No, I never brought him
now,
back.
I've also, I mean, you did bring Tina Turner, right?
No, I actually didn't bring Tina Turner.
Oh.
Tina came to Sun City after I'd already left.
Oh.
And however, I did know Tina when she came out in 1980 for Ronnie Quabell, for the late Ronnie Quabell.
Wow.
I don't know if people remember, but she actually played the Coliseum. Tina came out in 1980 and played the Coliseum. And I was handling the PR and marketing for the late Ronnie Quabell, who was the impresario at the time who brought her out. And Ronnie was one of those guys who was nowhere to be seen. He would bring him out, and it would be, okay, Hazel, deal with it. And that's kind of, I suppose, where I cut my teeth on everything. And she came out in 1980, and I got pretty close to her because we were the only people she knew. She actually sang Happy Birthday to Sam on his 40th at that time. That gives you how old he is today.
That's phenomenal.
And but no, I never brought her out. She went through. She was going to come out. Funny enough, in the late 80s, she was going to come out, but she hit Mad Max, and the Mad Max took off. And her agent and Tina actually said to me, I met with them, and she said, I can't do it. I just can't. It's finally happening for me. It's going through the roof. I just can't do it. And I had a contract, but an unsigned contract, and
Wow.
but I'd never have held her to it in any case because it was a very difficult time, and I would never have stepped in and held her to it. Not at all.
These relationships that have lasted through the years, I mean, you really probably had the most interest. In those days, you had a Rolodex, right? You had a phone book.
Kind of.
I mean, you could have pulled that out and wowed pretty much anybody, and probably still can, because I'm fairly confident that a lot of these people did become friends.
Not in the long term. it's a strange business, and life is strange, and things have changed. So you lose contact with people. While I was still with Sun City and rolling with everything that was going, I spent quite a lot of time with. It's interesting with the woman, with Dolly Parton. I went to her place with Tina, Liza, and Margaret.
Yes,
I actually,
the actress.
she came out. She did a fantastic show, and but over the years things changed, and it was strange. I had this kind of thing at the end of the 90s. I'd done the Rolling Stones, and then we did the Three Tenors and everything. And I was in Australia, and I went to see a friend of mine who was one of the biggest promoters in Australia, Kevin Jacobson, and he was producing a musical called Fame.
Yes.
And he said it's a completely new take on Fame. So I thought, okay, it's in rehearsal. He said, come and watch. We're doing a run through of Act One. So we went out there and actually saw that. I thought, I love this. I love this. I haven't produced a musical. I've produced 25 extravaganzas, but this is different. A musical is different. And I don't know, something just tweaked in me. I thought, I love this. And we went into suddenly this process of producing Fame and as a musical, and then I suddenly got hooked back into musicals. And it had been a long time since I'd done musicals or been involved with proper musical theatre. And that bug then suddenly bit me, and then I kind of lost interest in all of the concert stuff.
So you outed me as not being a massive musical fan, but when I look at the list of things that you've done, I've been to a few of yours. I went to Mamma Mia, which I think at that one, Benny and Bjorn were there.
No, they didn't come
Not?
through. No, they didn't come to us. No.
Jersey Boys, been to that.
Jersey Boys
Great show.
Was a great show.
Amazing show.
Jersey Boys was a fabulous show.
I didn't go to Priscilla, but I've been to Annie. I mean, these are all enormous, incredible Dreamgirls, for God's sake.
Dreamgirls is probably my saddest story, because it's probably one I'd put them up with the top 5 productions that we did in terms of quality of production. I couldn't get it off the ground here. I had 10 weeks in Joburg, and I had 8 weeks in Cape Town, and I had to pull the plug after 8 weeks in Joburg. It did not sell.
Despite
it did not sell.
The huge amount of publicity and noise around
the huge publicity, the huge noise, the brilliant cast, and they were brilliant, and it was world class. And I don't know what it was. The audience just didn't take to it. Just didn't take to it, and it's one of my saddest stories, because when you do something that everybody is raving about, I never had reviews like I've had for Dreamgirls ever. And so we really thought, okay, it's off a low base. We saw, but it's going to climb. The word of mouth's going to kick in, and it's going to sell. And it just spluttered. It's very, very sad.
You can't win them all, right?
No.
And do you think that there is a secret formula? Like when you see something, because you have the most trained eye and ear in the business for this, even now I would say you do. When you see or hear something, you just go, this is going to work, or this isn't. Or is it still largely up to chance and luck? And
a lot of it's up to chance. Some of it's up to luck. I mean, there's certain standards that will roll. I think Mamma Mia is a perennial. That's a kind of a show you can bring back, you can do. There'll always be an audience. It's a
By
fun,
the way,
feel-good.
Again, you're the one I can check this with. Is it true that they were offered $1 billion, ABBA, to get back together for just a show?
For a show. I heard something about that as well, that they were offered by somebody. But they did get together for that reunion in the UK, and they've got this virtual ABBA thingy going there. So
apparently there's a phone in the ABBA Museum, and sometimes you can, if it rings, you can pick it. You can't phone from it, but if it rings, it's from Benny's house, and he's sitting at the piano, and you can actually hear him at the piano.
You're kidding.
And if you pick it up when it rings, sometimes you can hear him sitting at the piano.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
It's weird, right?
That's weird. That's weird.
I heard that the other day, and I checked. It is true.
Yeah.
So I mean, these guys are just. I mean, they're also a phenomenon,
again,
right?
phenomenal on another level.
I mean, they also wrote Chess, didn't they? Benny and
Yeah,
Bjorn.
co-wrote with it. But listen, it's it's not everybody's cup of tea.
No.
But at the same time, you cannot watch that musical without coming out with a smile on your face. You've just had fun. It might be candy floss and bubblegum, but it works.
Well, your son is equally talented in picking up what people are keen on. And I mean, just the other day, Pumi Mashiko, who does the show with me here, was going mad about someone I'd never heard before. And you told me that you actually went to see the show and that you couldn't believe how amazing this was.
Gregory Porter, I've got to be honest, I hadn't heard of him.
Yeah.
Tony said to me, I'm bringing out Gregory Porter. I'm very excited. I said, oh my God, who is Gregory Porter? So he immediately YouTubes, and I'm listening to Gregory Porter, and there's this voice that is this combination of an Isaac Hayes and a Barry White, and
Wow.
I think 90% of your audience won't remember who Isaac Hayes and Barry White are, but that's that beautiful bass,
Sonorous.
jazz voice. Oh, just absolutely
Can't get enough
brilliant.
of your love, baby.
Oh.
That kind of thing.
And I thought, okay, that's cool, but does anybody know him? I mean, I don't know him. And of course, Tony looked at me and said, just don't worry about it, okay? It's don't worry about it. It's not you're
How
not
patronizing of him.
you're no, not at all. You're not the target market, so don't worry about it. And it was phenomenal. We had 5 sold-out shows. What was lovely, we did it at the Teatro, so it was up close and personal in the theatre, 1,800 seats. People were loving it. It was so intimate. It was fantastic. And then we did it in the gardens, the Kirstenbosch Gardens in Cape Town. On a we were blessed with the weather, and it was just beautiful. Twilight show into the night, and it's probably one of the only places in the world right now where people come to a show and they're carrying bottles. They're bringing their own bottles. They're bringing knives to slice the
And you don't have to
biltong
worry
and
about
the
them.
cheese
Yeah.
and everything, and they're laying out on their blankets and having their picnics, and
Very
nobody says a
civilized.
word.
No.
A word. It was absolutely magnificent, and he was just fantastic. And clearly, there's a market for that genre of quality jazz production here.
Well, you say there's a market. You've opened up markets. You've created markets where there weren't any before.
Hopefully,
And more especially, and I'm very aware of the fact that, you and I could sit and talk for hours and people would want to listen for hours. But you have to get on with the business. You're not here for your health. And it is incredible to me that every person who's ever asked about a concert will remember who they were there with. They'll remember what the weather was like. They'll remember how it felt. And they'll tell you those things. And so many of them, I think I can speak on behalf of at least a few and say thank you for creating these incredible moments that everyone in South Africa would never have had if it wasn't for Hazel Feldman.
no, so I think there are a lot. We're actually, for a small country, we've got some really, really good people who do a lot of really good things. I mean, Atian Big Concerts have been going for years. They do bring out some great stuff. Peter Turin's been producing some phenomenal stuff for years. It's good to be in that company, and it's always great. As far as us, as I said to you, my greatest excitement always is to stand at the back of the theatre and just see people standing on their feet and just singing along. And I mean, listening to Gregory Porter, there were times where the band was jamming. He wasn't even singing, and he had the microphones out to the audience. The audience was singing every single
special.
word to the song. It's that, as you say, those are memories, and that's the value of theatre, and that's the value of concerts, and the value of entertainment. And it's, I just wish politically here there would be a lot more serious consideration of the number of people that we employ, that the fact that we are a business, an industry to be taken seriously.
I'm
and
glad
I
you
would
brought
love
that up, because the last 3 years can't have been easy for anyone in the entertainment industry. And you sort of had a bird's eye view of that, because
Terrible.
you know the artists, you know the musicians, you know the promoters, you know the people who stand at the theatre doors.
Yeah.
And they must have been coming to you with the most atrocious stories.
Horrendous stories. And what was so, and that's why I say I would love for us not to be the lowest man on the totem pole in this country, whereas sport seems to get all the funding, all the sponsorship, all the government involvement, and the theatre and industry and the entertainment industry gets nothing. The 3 years were horrendous. There was no support for the industry whatsoever from government. The theatres and the industries in the UK, in the US, and in Australia were floated, unbelievably supported by their governments, and because they understand the value of it and they understand the depth. I mean, even on a production like We Will Rock You at this moment, we are behind the scenes. I have 75 backstage workers, 75 on stage.
That's
there
75
are
families.
Yeah, on stage there are 27 performers in total. Backstage, 75 people. We have been touring. Now they went to Manila, they went to Singapore. We've been touring. We tour with a touring company of 54 people. That's a lot of families taken care of through one thing, and that's just one element of it, because behind the scenes, there's the people who build the sets, there's the people who work on the lighting, and there's the people who provide the lighting, and so it goes.
And there are
so,
people who cook the food, and
who
people
are
who
in
do
the
the
theatres
accommodation.
and in the box offices and the food and beverage in the places and all of that. And it's an industry. It's not a frivolous
No, it's not some luxury
situation.
thing
It
that
isn't.
only
It's
you
an
know,
industry.
the first world should have.
And hopefully we have a new minister, you tell me.
We do.
Okay.
He's someone I know reasonably well, Zizi Kodwa.
Okay.
But I don't want to be too cynical. Let's let him get into it first.
Good. Well, hopefully he's listening. And
I
if
will
he
send
is,
him. I will send him this interview.
he needs to know that we honestly do need to be taken a lot more seriously. If we can even get a third of what they get, a tenth of what they give to sport,
Yeah.
wouldn't that be wonderful? You
So-
know how
so
many
is there-
people would benefit from that? Oh,
Is there a recovery?
I think it's going to be a longer recovery than we would have liked, because we've also now, remember, in Joburg, we've lost the Dome. And we don't
Which used
have
to be a great
venues.
venue.
A massive, we don't
I mean, it was from a sound point of view not the greatest.
No, but just think about it.
Yeah.
Johannesburg does not have an arena.
No.
So we have the Grand West, which is only 5,000-6,000 in Cape Town. We have Menlyn in Pretoria, which is about 8,000. Johannesburg, the city of Johannesburg, this world-class African city, does not have a performing arena. Whether it's, I can't do Disney on Ice anymore. Disney on Ice we're struggling to try and find an alternate
And
venue.
that was hugely popular. I mean,
We
families.
did 8 years of every single winter, July, we did Disney on Ice. Over 150,000 people came to see the shows in Joburg, Durban, and Cape Town, and families, new kids experiencing live theatre, the live experience, and the families coming, and it was just fantastic. We don't have an arena in Joburg. It's the most
actually
ludicrous
outrageous.
thing. Think about it.
Yeah. No, it's outrageous.
You know, the Ati just did Sting, and I said Sting couldn't come to Joburg, so Sting's in Pretoria.
Yeah, and that, again, limited crowd.
Yeah,
Because it's only so big.
yeah,
I mean, you
But-
you
but,
used to
you know-
used to do Ellis Park and
yeah.
and
Well,
the,
we could put
FNB Stadium.
Monster Jam has to go into the very, very big stadiums. We understand that. But there are so many artists who are arena artists, so many shows that are arena shows. And we don't have a covered arena in this city. I mean, it's just...
So there's something for the Joburg mayor
Yeah.
to figure out.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
actually, how embarrassing that we can't do this stuff.
So true. So true.
Well, I'm thrilled that I finally got to sit down with you and talk a little bit about some of these things that have been going on recently, but also, to remind people, because whoever's listening to this will go, oh my God, that was that. I remember that. or, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And I just love that there are so many stories that we still have to hear from you. And I know that there are going to be many more experiences that we get to have. Thanks to you, and thanks obviously to Tony. And tell Sam I say hi. Love
Shall
him.
do.
He's great. You're just an incredible family, and you are the You're the super mega of the entertainment business.
No, bless you. Just getting old. Kind of been around for such a long time.
Come on. Always so humble. Love you, Hazel. Hazel, you're just amazing.
Thanks, Gareth.
Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you.
Amazing.